The real prop is safely guarded in their main studio in Northern Ireland in Belfast, but it's the next best thing. If you'd like to sit on the throne to take your photo,
And become queen of what?
Westeros.
All right. I want to be a queen for a minute.
Allow us to make this introduction so you have a general idea about the origins of the city, what I just began to tell you, until we came to the point where we are today, right? And then we will slowly start our tour of the city and also visit the Game of Thrones location. The tribe that was spoken out today's Croatian is actually a mix of these two languages. It derives from the two languages. We have abundance of it. But it's mainly because of a lot of moisture and humidity here in the air. Yeah, it's Dubrava, the woods of the oak trees, and then
Dubrovnik comes from the word duba, oak trees.
And this is all on UNESCO's heritage list since 1970s on the rooftop, UNESCO, but they didn't
Say
care.
that again?
In 1994, 1995, depending on what area of Croatia, we liberated our country, that it used to be a republic here, just like Westeros is. The capital of the republic was what we now call the Old Town, just like the King's Landing is in Westeros. It was run by the aristocracy, just like the 7 noble families run everything in the show, right? So these are the medieval similarities, fiction and reality. So they came here in season 2, but stayed only until season 5. Why? Why they left after season 5? When they were coming here, it was always October and November. It had to be warm, still outside, because if you remember the famous expression in the show, winter is coming, but did not yet come. So it had to be still warm in the capital, in the King's Landing. But for obvious reasons, they couldn't come in July and August. Too many people over in Morocco, in the United States, Iceland. So they always travel back and forth between these countries. And it turned out to be a problem for them that they are not well connected with airline traffic with these other countries, which they realized already after season 3, but it took them some time to find a suitable replacement for Dubrovnik. At the end, after season 5, they settled on Spain, and they moved to Spain. So the third location of King's Landing was Spain. It was for Sevilla in the beginning, but other regions throughout Spain they could spread out to and film. They came in season 6 here only to film one scene. I'll tell you soon which scene it was. For season 7 they were not here at all. For the final season that's currently being filmed, they did come here, but in January and February, winter months, because winter finally came to King's Landing, so they could come here during the winter time. In January and February, we call this the ghost town. The old town is the ghost town. Everything closes down, the tourist season ends, none of the bars, restaurants, shops, nothing is open. You can't see a living being on the streets during these 2 months. 7 with scripts leaking ahead of time and episodes leaking. So they had extremely high security measures for the last season. I heard that they are actually filming multiple endings to the show. In case one of them leaks, the public wouldn't know if it's the real one. They spend an awful lot of money on this show. So as they came here in season 2, I want to just mention they discovered some other locations in our country. So Dubrovnik, King's Landing, right? But you were in Split. Hill called Klis, just above Split, is where they filmed Marine, when Daenerys was freeing the slaves. You can see the remains in reality of an old medieval fortress there on the top of the hill Klis. And this was in the show when she was freeing the slaves in season 4. And you can see the changes with CGI they've done. They added all the towers and everything, but still you can recognize that it's this area here. I gotta tell you, I tell all my guests this, since I was born in Split, right? My family still lives there. My sister, her little boy, my nephew, 9 years old, he was an extra on the show in Split.
He was on.
And there is this one scene when little boys, after she frees the slaves, a little boy say, Missa, 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 reaching out to Daenerys. My nephew is the first one next to her. So he's our family star. We are very proud of him. Have you walked in the old town of Split, right?
Yeah.
The Split
That's
has an
where they
old
were,
town,
yeah. We saw
just
that.
like Dubrovnik, only much older. Split's Old Town actually originates from the times of Roman Empire. So 1,700 years old, from the 3rd century. Roman Empire, Diocletian built it, so it's called Diocletian's Palace. They filmed in these crypts, the basements of Diocletian's Palace. And you can see here, this was also a screenshot from season 4. After she freed the slaves, some of them came to complain, to get rehired, because they actually had it quite well. Now, in reality, you can see that there are no steps. And in the show, in the screenshot, there are steps. This is not CGI. Beautiful little village called Trsteno, which is known for the oldest arboretum in Europe. So beautiful gardens and plants. On the Adriatic Highway, there are 2 500-year-old platanus trees, pine trees, maybe you noticed that. So they filmed in this arboretum in the garden of Tyrells and the house of the Tyrells, the High Garden. Now, here you can see the screenshot in this gloriette in Trsteno, when they were eating lemon cakes, Marjorie, Sansa Stark, her grandmother, Lady Olenna, trying to convince Sansa to reveal the truth about our favorite character, King Joffrey. He's a terrible guy. Very mean. Now, the small island of Lothro. So we met in the old harbor. From there you have regular boat lines to the small island just across from the old town, the botanical garden. They filmed a lot on the island. The island is a magical place. If you have time, go there, spare a few hours on the island. I'll show you where you can get this regular boat line at the end of the tour. And they filmed a lot. There is this Benedictine monastery, in the garden of which they filmed Quart and Marine as well in the show. It's a fight between Prince Oberyn and the Mountain. When poor Viper, Prince Oberyn, gets his skull squashed and his eyes popped in his skull. Terrible scene, which was filmed in an open-air amphitheater, which is a part of an abandoned hotel within walking distance from the old town, closer to the east side. I will show you that hotel as well. Since the hotel is abandoned, they thought that they will have a free location for the show. But they were wrong. What you see here on the ground, you might saw this graffiti in Split as well. It's a graffiti of a famous football club from Split, Hajduk Split. Fans put graffiti everywhere, right? When they came to film the scene, they wanted to paint the ground to fit the needs of the show. The fans of the football club did not allow them.
Oh my God!
So they had to pay to the fans of our football club to paint on the walls.
Yesterday, yeah.
We walked all around it.
So you came up to the north tower of the city walls, the Tower of Mincheta. Show you another screenshot
What
here.
is her name?
Daenerys, Amelia Clarke in reality.
Amelia Clarke.
Yeah.
And what's the
In the show, the mother of dragons, Daenerys Targaryen, the unburned. She has a name this big.
Is it Daenerys? D-E-N?
In the show. So remember, when Daenerys came to Quart, to create a city of Wall, to asking of spies to give her shit. Yeah, sure. Now, this was one of the rare locations that the show got for free from the city. They were constantly nagging how everything is so expensive for them, how the city ought to give them something for free. So the city gave them this little bay for free. And they ended up filming a lot in it, of course.
Yeah.
They filmed every day in the Bay of Colorina. And if you remember in the show, those of you who've seen some of it at least, many of the conversations between the leading actors like Cersei, Jaime, Tyrion were filmed next to the water. And the reason for that is because it was a free location, free of changes, the building, if they have a justifying reason to make a change. Otherwise, they try to keep everything as natural as possible. I will give you lots of other scenes as well, many conversations. Now, when it comes to the Pebbles Beach, this is where they filmed when Princess Marcella was being sent off to Dorne to marry the young Prince Martell. So her little boat takes off from where the kayaks take off from, and you can see in the side here a part of this fortress that I told you was the House of the Undying interior. Now they actually used a little traditional vessel from Dubrovnik County for rolling and fishing, but on the rivers. We use it on the river of Neretva. This is done with CGI, of course. They did not build these towers.
Yeah.
But why? What's the reason behind this change? In reality, this fortress is considered to be a part of the city walls. Have you walked up on it?
Not
Yes.
on that, no.
Not on that.
We haven't
one.
been over there. We've
Your
just on the-
ticket show is the Red Keep, the main castle of the king in the capital. So to make it more fancier, more
They had to add a
fit
few
for a
things.
king, right? They had to make it these changes with CGI. In the hallway where they filmed the scene, Power is Power. This scene was used in many of the trailers for the show. It was that famous conversation that Cersei has with Littlefinger about power when he tells her that knowledge is power because of all the information he has from his little birds, his spies that tell him stuff. And then she replies by ordering her guards to obey her. Take a step back, close your eyes, turn around, pull out your swords. When they all obey her instantly, then she says, power is power. So that was the scene they used to advertise. So the entrance hallway, power is here, the steps that go up here. So remember when our dear Joffrey celebrated his name day, he drinking that poor knight who drank too much wine, ordered him to fight with the cow for his amusement, right? So the two knights were fighting here. This is not a screenshot. This was taken by one of my colleagues, extras.
Really?
That's why the old town is not CGI'd in the background, you see. And the first scene we'll see in the old town when we get there, so I'll tell you about it when we get there. Access to the marketplace and everything that was
Main
still
gate
centralized
of
in
the
old
Dubrovnik
town.
wall.
It was also done to improve security because they would put their guards inside, in the middle, and on the outside. And the Lannisters. Now this is a screenshot. This was taken with a camera that was positioned high up on this wall over here. That's why you can see this pillar over here. And the steps that go in the back over here. And the lower gates of the old town through which the Lannisters came through, and they were trying to escape the angry mob that rebelled. Us extras that we stood on over here where we just passed through, yelling at them, throwing stuff at them, rebelling, right? The Lannisters were actually walking towards this wall and corner, so not everything makes sense in reality like it does in the show after the montage, after they put it all together, right? But never mind that. Let me tell you why this was my favorite scene. I told you when they were coming, it was October and November, end of the tourist season, but there are still tourists in the city, especially cruise ships. To close this set, to film this scene, they pulled up the wooden drawbridge that we just crossed, but in that way they also closed the main gates of the old town. Now at that particular morning, there was this big Italian cruise ship in the city, and the Italians were brought with buses here in front of the old town. They had limited time to explore the old town, but they couldn't get in. So I don't know if you know any Italians personally and their temperament.
Very, very
They
emotional.
can be very, yes, emotional. It's just like us Croatians, very similar. They went nuts.
Oh.
There was an actual riot on the other side of the wall, as these guys were trying to film a riot here. And the first idea was, let's use the Italians, but audio was the problem. They were shouting in Italian, right? So everyone was begging them to be quiet. They didn't care. They just kept getting louder and louder. So the producers, in order to stick to the budget, made a decision to continue with the filming, but to add the audio for the scene afterwards. So they asked us, extras, to shout out whatever we want, whatever makes us angriest, as our facial expressions have to look angry. That's when the fun began. People were shouting some crazy things here against their boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, politicians, bosses, everyone who made you mad lately. It was such a unique experience to be yelling that out loud in the city center, so stress relieving.
It's good therapy.
Good they filmed here. So what they did here, they filmed her running into this alley. Then they filmed her running through 3 other alleys in the old town. And at the end, when she gets thrown down on the ground, when the hound comes to her rescue, that part they filmed up on that fortress. So that was the 3rd scene in the fortress. So 5 separate locations. Sort of divides the city into 2 parts. On the left side, on the right side here, you have mainly a flat area. It's like a maze, a network of small alleys. And on the left side here, all the streets are steps. All these alleys are steps. All of them are dead end. They take you nowhere to the wall except for Buja Street.
Except for Buja.
That goes to the north gate. Nadia. And on the right side, they form a curve in the middle, you see?
Yes.
That makes the street appear longer than it actually is. It's an old trick from the Greeks that the Romans adopted from them in order to make the main street look more majestic. Dominican monastery. The monasteries were put there on purpose because, to put it very roughly, even back in medieval times they used religion in political purposes. So the priests were put here by the main gates, and they had an important role of controlling who and what comes into the city, right?
Okay, can you repeat that?
So the Dubrovnik Republic was the first republic to sign the acknowledgement of the United States of America.
Wow.
Now, on the beginning of each one of the streets, you have these like reddish banners with names of all the bars, restaurants, shops that are located in the street. So it's easier for your orientation in case you are looking for something in some street. Comparison to the main street, right? To make the main street look more majestic. They even used the optical illusion. But one, they had to leave a bit wider in order to carry all the long construction beams or long big items that couldn't enter in this part of the city. The kitchens must be on the top floor in case one of them causes a fire again, that the family has time to escape, to get out of the house.
Orthodox Christian Church, the only one in the city.
Right, so they managed to
Star Wars last movie was filmed here in Dubrovnik.
here, yes, as well.
Robin
And
Hood movie
also,
was filmed in
We
Dubrovnik
were
too.
supposed to have the new James Bond, the last one with Daniel Craig. I will make a right turn here. This market is only here during the morning hours. The earlier you get, the better choices you have. And I always say I wish I was a fly on that wall to hear that conversation. When they sat down with our bishop and explained that they want to do a scene with a completely naked lady going down the steps of his church, atoning for her sins, which are, by the way, that she sleeps with her brother and her children with him, and that all the villagers will be watching and throwing feces at her, and some getting naked as well. As I heard, Bishop almost got a heart attack. And his first reaction was, "No way, you are crazy." But, you know, money talks. producers
Exactly,
always
money
want
talks,
money.
yeah.
Really?
And
The bi-
he started to feel better.
And the bishop probably watched the movie too. Okay, so where are we?
We are on the steps of Walk of Shame. The
Steps
famous-
of Walk of Shame.
Here is the
Oh, here's the
screenshot.
picture.
Here is a screenshot with Cersei standing on top of the stairs, and the camera is behind her looking down, right? They spend a lot of money on this scene, mainly to keep it a secret. First of all, they paid more than 200,000 euros to the owners of these apartments to relocate their guests. Everything had to be vacant, empty,
Oh, my.
nobody's side of the apartments. Then they had to spend a lot of money to pay to the local businesses to close down their shops, restaurants, everything. You see, this is where we extra stood in.
Yeah.
Now, for them, up to date, she did not reveal who the father of that second child of hers is, but we think we know here that it's Pedro Pascal, Prince Oberyn, the guy who plays Prince Oberyn,
Oh.
because the two of them hooked up during the filming here in Dubrovnik, and the timing fits. He could be the baby daddy. He's actually her second boyfriend from the show. Don't know if you knew, but she used to date Jerome Flynn, Bronn, the warrior who wants gold, castle, Jaime's friend. You know who he is? They actually dated before Game of Thrones, right? This is an example of her character, let me tell you. They broke up on bad terms. And once she realized that he will be a part of the show as well, she put a special clause in her contract that in no way she should be in the same scene or even in the same room with him.
Oh my God.
Have you seen all of the episodes?
Not all of them.
Not all of them. When you get to the last episode of season 7, it's going to be one big final meeting. Everybody will gather at that meeting, and Jerome Flynn or Bronn, he's going to say, "Oh, this is politics. This is not for me. I'm going to have a beer in the local tavern," right? Because he's not allowed to be there because of, in reality, his former relationship with Lena. She's such a diva. People often ask,
I hope she got enough money for that.
I really don't know why Lena had to say that to the press. Like, boo-hoo, poor her.
Yeah.
She only walked once. And that one time that she was walking, she had something on that looked like a garbage bag, covered her from here to here, and had these X's on it that were actually markers for CGI to connect the body to the head. Right? What they actually did is they had more versions of the body and just one version of the head. So they were adding the body onto the head instead of the other way around, which would be easier, of course. The one that explodes at the end of season 6. Have you seen that? No, sorry. But it wasn't. To be clear, that Sept of the Baylor in the show is not a real building, doesn't exist in reality. They completely built it in the studio. They did get inspired by looking at two other churches in Spain. Palace, rector or duke, head of the state, and this is where the government used to meet, the council of wise men, the aristocrats, grand and small council that made all the important decisions. Here, I can show you here on the government building, you still have the figure of Saint Blasius above the main gates. How they're here in this building, that they should do it outside of the walls of the capital. And as they were renovating it, the years passed and the styles changed, and that's how it turned out to be a mixture of all these styles.
Daenerys came to ask the King of Spies to give her ships. That's the scene where it was filmed. From the Game of Thrones movie.
Baby pregnant and a couple of the Turkish soldiers with you. I will not give you my ships, I need them to trade. So that was the scene here. Also then that tall African American guy, the one of the 13, which is of course in front of St. Blasius Church. Here you have the most beautiful statue of St. Blasius on the top of the roof, again with the golden bishop's hat and model of the capital that he is watching over. Everything had its way and order in the Dubrovnik Republic. First, pay the customs. So on the original doors there is still a sign that says Dogana, you see, meaning the customs place in Latin. Arches with little rooms, what were the shops. And there is this famous inscription that you can see from here on the arch just across from us in Latin. And translated from Latin, it would mean, the way how I wave to you today, let that be way God will wave to me at the end. It's because of the Dominican monastery, this huge complex in front of us here. So remember, I told you they put the monasteries on purpose next to the main gate because the priests had a political role of controlling when what comes to the city. And most of the extras were sort of closing in on her in this second part, the Walk of Shame. Some of us were standing on those steps. You see the steps on the left side and throwing stuff at her. Next to the steps is when the person trips and falls down. And when she tripped and fell, that was that famous facial expression. She was so hard trying to concentrate on. She had to show with her face the struggle, right? Will she give up or will she gather the strength and continue the walk of here? But not to go there again. I'll show you from here. It was, remember on the West Gate, we witnessed the riot against Joffrey, but the riot started with the scene they filmed here, right? Yes, so it was a scene in which Tyrion and Bronn were walking and talking to each other, walking down the street, and then they passed by a group of villagers standing there, and one of them is preaching to the others about the Lannister secret, how Joffrey is not a royal descendant. The Street of Wells, and the one where we are going to turn into now, that's known for the restaurants. It also goes all the way through parallelly with the main street, but on the opposite side of the one that we already took.
A typical Croatian decor called the Rosetta. One of the original balconies that are still standing, all the rest were destroyed during an earthquake.
Rarely you will see people use them. As you will see now when we get to the Buja street again, how it's crowded. A lot of people using that street because it's the only one that has a